Hi everyone, my name is Kira McSherry and I use the pronouns she, her. I'm a graduate counseling student at Arizona State University, and today I will walk through an ethical dilemma using Welfl's model, focusing on blurred boundaries between a psychologist and a distressed friend. The presented ethical case is in regards to a licensed professional and a phone call from his friend. Dr. Goodfriend receives a distress call from Buddy, a close friend from high school. Buddy expresses signs of depression and fleeting suicidal thoughts. Dr. Goodfriend listens supportively, gives advice, and suggests a book. Buddy ends the call by saying, "My wife suggested I find a therapist, but I could talk with you instead, which would be cheaper." This call raises ethical concerns related to boundaries, dual relationships, and responsibility. Reading this vignette, I felt internal conflict. Valuing loyalty and connection myself, my instinct is to support a friend in pain. Yet, as a developing counselor, I sensed a red flag. This was more than a casual check-in. Buddy is showing signs of depression and even mentioning self-harm thoughts. Looking at Welfl's ethical decision-making model, step 1 is develop ethical sensitivity. This step challenged me to see that being a good listener isn't always enough and can blur ethical lines. It promoted me to ask, am I a friend or unintentionally his therapist? This tension between care and caution highlights the importance of ethical sensitivity. Noticing when something feels off signals the need to pause and reflect. Step 2 is where we define dilemmas and options. In this step, I focused on who's involved and what's at stake. Buddy isn't just a casual contact, he's a longtime friend, which complicates the boundary between support and clinical responsibility. The main stakeholder is Buddy, who's clearly distressed. Dr. Goodfriend, a licensed psychologist, is also a stakeholder that has ethical obligation even outside formal therapy. Buddy's family is also impacted. The long-standing friendship makes the context feel informal, but his final comment blurs the line between friend and therapist. Step 3 is define central issues and options. Here I focused on what's really at stake and what options are possible. The central issue is clear. Dr. Goodfriend is unintentionally stepping into a therapist's role without consent or boundaries. Buddy mentions of suicidal thoughts, even casually, raises ethical red flags. This step helped me move from emotional reaction to thoughtful response. I asked myself, is Buddy at risk? Could this blur into therapy? Could doing nothing cause harm? My main options are to do nothing, follow up to clarify, encourage therapy, or offer referrals. As someone who naturally wants to help, I felt that tension, wanting to be supportive without overstepping. That's where ethical clarity becomes essential. Step 4 asks us to refer to ethic codes and laws. Here I turn to ACA and APA ethical codes to guide this dilemma. This step reminded me that boundaries don't just protect us as counselors, they help ensure the person in distress gets real, appropriate support. As I grow into my professional identity, it's reassuring to have clear ethical codes to lean on when my instinct says help, but ethics says pause. These ACA and APA standards listed on this slide all caution against dual relationships and emphasize the need for consent and clarity. While Dr. Goodfriend isn't legally liable yet, Buddy's suicidal comments makes proactive follow-up and referral ethically necessary. Step 5 is where we search out ethical scholarships to see what literature is provided regarding how other counselors have dealt with this type of issue. In this case, blurred boundaries are high risk. Conversations with friends can easily drift into therapeutic territory, especially when strong emotions are involved. CED645 warns that psychologists may not recognize when they have crossed that line. In Buddy's case, the long call, emotional disclosure, and advice resembled a session without consent or structure, creating ethical risk. Next, there is referral as best practice. Hurley and Corey 2015 stress that when a friend presents clinical concerns, the ethical response is to refer. This maintains the friendship without assuming clinical responsibility. Dr. Goodfriend can acknowledge Buddy's trust while saying, "I care about you, but I'm not your therapist. Let's connect you with someone who can help." Regarding suicidal comments which raise ethical responsibility, even casual or joking references to self-harm must be taken seriously. Remley and Hurley 2020 emphasize that psychologists have an ethical duty to follow up and guide the person toward care. In Buddy's case, the appropriate response isn't treatment. It's a clear recommendation to seek professional help. Ignoring it could be ethically negligent. Emotional tension is normal, but action matters. As Kitchener 1986 notes, it's common to feel conflicted in situations like this. The key is choosing ethical action despite discomfort. Ethical courage means having hard conversations and setting boundaries with care and clarity. Step 6 focuses on consultation, particularly when the situation is emotionally complex. In real life, I turn to a supervisor or a mentor. Supervision isn't just a safety net, it's a part of ethical practice. Saying, "I'm unsure, but I want to do the right thing," shows strength. It also helps address countertransference, especially when personal feelings, like protectiveness, could cloud ethical judgment. Support builds clarity and accountability. Step 7 is deliberate and decide. If I were in Dr. Goodfriend's position, the most ethical option would be to follow up, not to counsel Buddy, but to set clear boundaries and express concern as a friend. A response like, "I care about you, but I'm not in a position to give clinical advice. I really encourage you to talk to a therapist." That shows both empathy and ethical responsibility. Providing resources reinforces support without crossing into therapy. As a future counselor, I want to offer real care, not halfway help, and that means knowing when to refer out. Step 8 is inform supervisor and document. In this step, the focus is on following through ethically, informing a supervisor, finalizing the plan, and documenting it. The decision to follow up with Buddy, clarify boundaries, and offer referrals should be shared for accountability. Even informal documentation protects both the counselor and the relationship. It's about acting with clarity and support, not in isolation. Step 9 is reflect on the experience. This final step encourages self-reflection and growth. This case made me think about how I'd respond if someone close to me came to me in distress. My instinct is to help, but this model reminded me that caring doesn't mean crossing professional lines. I'm learning that boundaries are a form of respect and not rejection. It helped me strengthen my ethical thinking and reminded me of the kind of counselor I want to be: warm, empathetic, and clear about my role. In conclusion, ethical sensitivity helps us recognize when support crosses into something more clinical. Clear boundaries aren't cold, they're how we ensure care stays appropriate and ethical. Referring a friend isn't failure, it's responsible. As Brené Brown says, clear is kind. This model reminded me that empathy and accountability can go hand in hand, and that's how I want to practice.